The brain that heals itself. How neuroplasticity rebuilds hope after trauma. You're sitting in traffic. The light turns green, but your hands tighten around the steering wheel. Your heart races, breath quickens, and suddenly you're back there, in that crash that happened months ago. The sound of tires screeching, glass shattering, the smell of smoke. Except, you're safe now, but your brain doesn't know that. That's trauma. A memory so deeply wired into your neural circuits that it overrides logic, hijacks calm, and replaces now with then. But here's the miracle. Your brain is not broken. It's adapted. And because of neuroplasticity, it can adapt again, this time toward healing. This is the story of how your brain can rewire itself, even after life rewires you. Part 1. When trauma rewrites, the brain. Trauma isn't just psychological. It's biological. When something deeply distressing happens, a car accident, abuse, war, loss, your brain's alarm system, the amygdala, goes into overdrive. Its job is to keep you alive. It floods your body with adrenaline, heightens your senses, and burns the memory deep into your neural fabric. That's why trauma memories are different. They aren't stored neatly in the hippocampus like normal memories. They're scattered across the body's survival network. Sounds, smells, or images can instantly reactivate them. Over time, if left unresolved, this hyperactivation shrinks the hippocampus, your memory and learning center, and enlarges the amygdala, making fear the brain's default mode. You begin living not in the present, but in perpetual anticipation of danger. But here's the good news. The same process that trauma uses to wire fear, neuroplasticity, can be used to unwire it. Part 2. The woman who forgot how to feel safe. Meet Claire. At 31, she was a trauma nurse, the calm in other people's chaos. Until one day, chaos hit her. So near-fatal accident left her with chronic pain and post-traumatic stress. Even months later, a simple honk or flashing light sent her spiraling. Sleep became impossible. Crowds felt suffocating. She said it felt like her brain had been hijacked by fear. Her therapist introduced her to something called EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. It sounded strange at first, moving her eyes back and forth while recalling traumatic memories. But what EMDR does is brilliantly simple. It activates both hemispheres of the brain simultaneously, helping the mind refile traumatic memories from the emotional center, the amygdala, into the rational center, the prefrontal cortex. After several weeks, Claire noticed something. The same memories that once triggered panic now felt distant. Brain scans confirm this. EMDR and other trauma therapies like somatic experiencing, mindfulness and neurofeedback reduce amygdala hyperactivity and strengthen the frontal regions, responsible for emotional control. Her brain didn't erase the memory. It rewired how it responded to it. Part 3. The brain's hidden repair system. Every time you sleep deeply, your brain runs a cleanup cycle. It replays emotional memories and rebalances neurotransmitters, pruning stress circuits and strengthening calm ones. That's why trauma survivors often struggle. Their sleep is disrupted, and their nightly reset can't do its job. But through deliberate neuroplastic practices in mindfulness, breathwork, safe body movement, you can manually trigger that repair process. When you focus on slow, rhythmic breathing, you stimulate the vagus nerve, the main highway between brain and body. This calms the heart, lowers cortisol, and sends a safety signal upward. We're okay now. Over time, this literally builds new neural associations between safety and calm. The body remembers safety as vividly as it once remembered danger. That's neuroplasticity in motion, the reprogramming of survival into serenity. Part 4. The man who painted his way back to life. Let's talk about Miguel, a 48-year-old veteran who came home with PTSD so severe that fireworks sent him hiding under his bed. Traditional therapy helped, but something else transformed him: art. At first, his therapist asked him to paint what fear looked like. He painted chaos, dark strokes, jagged lines. Then each week, she asked him to paint something that made him feel safe. The paintings began to change: softer colors, open skies, trees. Then came portraits, laughter, sunsets. What Miguel didn't know was that as he painted, he was rewiring the visual and emotional centers of his brain. The creative act engaged his prefrontal cortex and silenced the amygdala's overactivity, building new connections that linked expression with calm. Art therapy, music, dance, they're not just creative outlets. They're neuroplastic healing tools, because when words fail, movement and color speak directly to the brain's deeper networks. Part 5. The neuroscience of healing. So what does science say about trauma and brain change? Researchers at Harvard and Stanford found that trauma recovery therapy increases gray matter density in the prefrontal cortex and hippocampus, the very regions suppressed by trauma. It's the brain rebuilding itself, neuron by neuron. Dr. Ruth Lanius, a leading expert in trauma neuroscience, describes the process as reconnecting the self. When people recover, their brain networks, emotion, memory, and identity, begin synchronizing again. The once fragmented self becomes whole. Even more fascinating, mindfulness and compassion practices stimulate growth in the insula, the part of the brain responsible for self-awareness and empathy. That's why people who heal from trauma often emerge more compassionate and emotionally attuned than before. Their brain hasn't just healed, it's evolved. Part 6. The body keeps the score. But so does the brain, Doctor. Bessel van der Kolk, author of The Body Keeps the Score, explains that trauma lives not just in thoughts, but in the body's memory systems. Every muscle tension, every startle reflex, every knot in the stomach, it's the brain's survival circuits echoing through the nervous system. Healing, therefore, must involve the body too. Movement-based therapies like yoga, tai chi, and somatic experiencing help regulate these networks by pairing body awareness with slow, mindful motion. Brain imaging shows that these practices reduce activity in the amygdala and increase connectivity between the prefrontal cortex and emotional centers, giving you back control. So when survivors move, breathe, and feel, they're not just exercising, they're teaching their body that it's safe to live again. Part 7. How memories transform. Here's something incredible. Every time you recall a memory, it becomes temporarily malleable. Editable neuroscientists call this reconsolidation. When you bring up a painful memory in a calm, safe environment, your brain restores it, this time with less fear attached. This is why trauma therapy works, not because it deletes memories, but because it changes their emotional code. The memory remains, but its meaning changes. Your brain learns that happened, but it's not happening anymore. Part 8. Neuroplastic practices for trauma recovery. So how can you use neuroplasticity to help your own healing journey? Here are science-backed steps that rewire the trauma brain. Grounding through sensation. Focus on your senses, the feel of your feet on the ground, the sound of your breath. This activates sensory circuits that pull your brain out of panic mode and back into the present. Consistent mindful breathing. Just 5 minutes a day of slow breathing reduces amygdala activity and boosts parasympathetic regulation, training your body to default to calm. Therapeutic movement yoga. Walking, swimming, any rhythmic movement repairs disrupted body-brain communication, enhancing vagal tone and emotional balance. Creative expression, paint, sing, dance, write. The brain uses creativity as a bridge to process experiences beyond logic, translating emotion into healing. Safe relationships connection is medicine. Positive social bonds release oxytocin, which calms the amygdala and rebuilds trust circuits in the brain. Healing isn't about erasing the past. It's about teaching your brain to stop living in it. Part 9. The Phoenix Brain. After years of research, scientists have begun calling the rewired trauma brain a phoenix brain. Because like the mythical bird, it burns and then rises stronger, with renewed neural architecture. Brain scans of long-term trauma survivors who've undergone therapy show greater integration between emotional, cognitive, and sensory networks. They think more clearly, regulate emotions faster, and experience empathy more deeply. In essence, their brain evolved. Trauma didn't end them, it transformed them. Part 10. The new story. And that's what healing really is. Not the deletion of pain, but the writing of a new narrative around it. Your neurons learn through repetition, but they also learn through story. Every time you tell your story differently, shifting from victim to survivor, from broken to becoming, you're reprogramming your brain's meaning circuits. Your language rewires your perception, and your perception rewires your brain. So if you've ever thought, "I'll never be the same again," you're right, but not in the way you think. You can be better, more resilient, more compassionate, more you. Closing reflection. The rewired self. The brain that breaks can also heal. The same neurons that once fired in fear can fire in peace. The same body that froze can learn to move freely again. Neuroplasticity is not just a scientific term. It's hope made biological, because no matter what you've lived through, your brain has been quietly waiting, ready to rebuild, ready to believe again. So here's your reminder. You are not the trauma you survived. You are the rewiring that followed. You are living proof that healing is possible. Neuron by neuron, breath by breath, day by day.